Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Lori Johnson. Today, Israel promising revenge against Iran after Iranian-backed Hezbollah launches a drone at the home of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And Israel is also going after the finances of Hezbollah's terrorist activities. We'll bring you this story from Jerusalem. As former President Donald Trump continues to gain in the polls, he and Vice-President Kamala Harris are hitting the swing states, going to everywhere from churches to McDonald's with just 2 weeks until Election Day. We'll bring you a look at how the Democrats could try to change the Supreme Court if they do win this election, and remembering the bravery of victims of October 7th, including those from other countries like the Philippines. We'll have that story for you from Manila. Those stories and more today on NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin in the Middle East, where Israel is promising that Iran will pay a price after the Iranian-backed group Hezbollah fired a drone at the home of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu this weekend. And Israel is launching strikes on the finances behind Hezbollah's terrorist activities. CBN's Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
Iran is denying it tried to kill Benjamin Netanyahu after a drone struck his private home in Caesarea this weekend.
3 unmanned aerial vehicles penetrated from Lebanon. 2 of them were shot down, and the 3rd hit a building in Caesarea in an attempt to hit the prime minister.
Netanyahu and his wife Sarah were not home at the time. After the attack, he went on social media.
And we're continuing our battle with Iran's other terrorist proxies. We're going to win this war.
So will something deter you?
No.
Israel is blaming the Islamic regime in Iran and says it will pay. It's already expected to retaliate soon for Iran firing 181 ballistic missiles at the Jewish state on October 1st. In the aftermath of the elimination of Hamas leader al-Hayya Sinwar, hundreds of Hamas terrorists are shown surrendering in this video from the northern Gaza Strip. Israel sent thousands of leaflets encouraging Hamas terrorists to surrender. And the former CEO of SodaStream offered $100,000 and safe passage to anyone releasing a live hostage. A top Hamas official says the terror group isn't giving up and insists no hostages will be freed till the IDF leaves Gaza.
The Hamas movement will continue with the covenant of the founding leaders.
That covenant, outlined in the Hamas charter, calls for exterminating all Jews in Israel and wiping out their nation. He said Hamas will keep trying to commit mass slaughters like October 7th. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, the IDF is pummeling Hezbollah infrastructure, training bases, tunnels, and says it won't stop.
So far, more than 1,500 Hezbollah operatives have been eliminated. We are not stopping. We are at war and attacking all the places that Hezbollah uses for terrorism.
Overnight, the IDF targeted Hezbollah financial institutions to rob the terror group of its economic oxygen. In the U.S., presidential candidate Kamala Harris is rejecting the claim. She believes the IDF is committing genocide in Gaza. During a campaign stop, she responded to a pro-Palestinian protester who accused the administration of not speaking about genocide. She said, "What he is talking about, it's real, and I respect his voice." Former Israeli Ambassador Michael Oren called what Harris said a very dangerous precedent and was the first time that the White House has been linked to a libel that threatens Israel's legitimacy.
Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. Israeli politicians are promising that Iran will pay a price for the Hezbollah drone against Prime Minister Netanyahu. What are they saying, and how might Israel retaliate, Chris?
Well, Lori, they're holding Iran responsible for that, even though they're denying it. Hezbollah is their proxy, and they wouldn't likely do anything without Tehran's approval. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said that the attack was against the state of Israel itself, and it's against its government symbols, and they will continue to attack any terrorist actors. The Speaker of the Knesset, he said Iran has made a big mistake, and he also asked it about humorously that Iran will be sorry flying a paper fighter airplane, much less a drone. Ben Gvir, one of the ministers here in the government, said that Israel won't give up until there's complete victory in Gaza, Lebanon, Judea, and Samaria. And others said Iran really is crossing a red line. And they said the end of the brutal Iranian regime is closer than ever. Now, how they would respond, it's possible they may go after Khamenei itself. At least that's the speculation of some people here in Israel, since Iran apparently has gone after the leader of Israel.
So Israel's plans to attack Iran were reportedly leaked over the weekend. How seriously is this being regarded in Israel?
Very seriously, Lori, a very serious security breach. The plans were leaked on a Telegram channel that apparently supports Iran. The Pentagon saying it's investigating, and if it's true, then the FBI will likely be investigating as well. It included operational plans of Israel's attack on Iran. It had satellite photos, apparently, or information about how Israel would be moving munitions. But right now, it seems like they won't be attacking the nuclear sites. They've been talking that they won't be doing that even before the security breach, or the oil facilities. But it is clear that they may be attacking many military sites and directly attacking the strength and the infrastructure, the institutions of the regime itself.
What more can you tell us about how Israel is going after a group that's helping Hezbollah finance its terrorist attacks?
Lori, this might be a game changer. Right now, they're going after Hezbollah's financial infrastructure. That includes a group called the Al-Qard Al-Hassan Association, where they have funneled billions of dollars from Iran and other nefarious things that Hezbollah is doing to gain money. There were dozens of strikes overnight. They had warned civilians beforehand. Now, they use this money, literally billions of dollars, to purchase weapons and make payments to Hezbollah's military wing. Some people say the banking system of Hezbollah is basically gone, and this will cripple Hezbollah economically. They would get $700 million from Iran annually. And really what it might do, Lori, is really bring down Hezbollah's power infrastructure inside Lebanon. And maybe this is a tipping point inside that country where the other people that are sort of under the sway of Hezbollah may be gaining more strength and more influence.
What are some of the other military strikes Israel has carried out against Hezbollah and Hamas?
Well, you saw some of the video in our report, Lori, just spectacular explosions. They're destroying terror bases. They're destroying some villages that were basically controlled by Hezbollah. Many of the tunnel systems that Hezbollah has been building for almost 20 years, if not more, weapons depots. Some of the rocket launchers that, launch rockets and missiles into Israel have been destroyed. They're also taking out Hezbollah commanders. So basically what Yoav Gallant, the defense minister of Israel, is saying is Hezbollah is crumbling. He says they're not only defeating the enemy, but destroying him in the villages along the border and all the places that Hezbollah had planned to use as launching pads into Israel. That plan was called Conquer the Galilee, where they would do something what Hamas did on October 7th. And right now, he was saying there's a presence of IDF troops that are overwhelming the terrorists inside southern Lebanon.
So let's go back to Iran. How do the Iranian people feel about their own government? And what is the Lord doing in that country?
Well, Lori, we just talked to somebody today who is in touch with many of these Iranians in other countries as well as inside Iran. Most of them, he says, detest the regime. There's reports that they want Israel to attack Iran so it could topple the regime. They would love to see a regime change. And as we have reported, as well as our colleagues George Thomas and Gary Lane, there's really a revival going on inside Iran. Many of these people, they love Israel. They've come to the faith through dreams revisions, and many people hope and pray this could be a tipping point for Iran.
Absolutely. Our CBN News and Middle East Bureau Chief, Chris Mitchell, thanks as always for your insights. Stay safe, Chris, and know that many people are praying for you and our staff there in Israel. Coming up here at home, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump on the campaign trail with just 2 weeks until Election Day. We'll bring you a look at where they're going and what they're saying when we come back.
Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
With just over 2 weeks until Election Day, the presidential candidates were hitting the campaign trail through swing states this weekend. Vice President Kamala Harris spoke at a Georgia church Sunday, while former President Trump served up fries at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. CBN's Brody Carter reports.
Nearly 15 million early voting and absentee ballots have already been cast. And with 15 days to go, faith communities are a key target for victory.
And let us remember that while weeping may endure for a night, joy cometh in the morning.
Vice President Harris appealing to faith voters at New Birth Church in Atlanta.
Faith and good works go hand in hand. And that is especially true when it comes to protecting our sacred right to vote and getting souls to the polls.
But over the weekend, an online community questioned her faith in a viral tweet when rally protesters were silenced after shouting, "Jesus is Lord."
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
Last week, she took heat from the podium for skipping the Al Smith Dinner, an annual fundraiser for Catholic charities named after the first Catholic to run for president.
Catholics will be a key demographic in every battleground state. I'm sorry, why is Vice President Harris not here?
Former President Donald Trump campaigning in Pennsylvania this weekend, using vulgar language in his reference to the vice president.
We can't stand you, you're a vice president.
He also campaigned at a McDonald's, where he served French fries and said Harris's claim of once having worked at McDonald's is not true.
Look, I don't like it. I don't like the profanity. I don't like personal attacks. I don't like any of that stuff. But nothing new and nothing that's going to move the dial when it comes to this election right now. It's an outrageous statement by Donald Trump. Must be a Friday night, right?
On ABC's This Week, New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu says Trump's foul language is nothing new. He also defended Trump's comments, saying the military should be used against America's, quote, internal enemies.
I don't think he's going to go and weaponize. He didn't do it the first term. He's not going to necessarily do it this term. But he's making a point that we want leaders that are fighters and stand up for their fellow Americans.
This week, Harris will team up with the Obamas in key swing states while Trump heads to North Carolina. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Still ahead, the potential changes ahead for the Supreme Court if Democrats win the White House. We'll examine the proposed plan that includes a constitutional amendment right after this. Since the president has the power to nominate justices, every election makes an impact on the Supreme Court. This year's vote could have even more significance. Before dropping out of the race, President Biden proposed a plan to make major changes to the court, a plan Kamala Harris also supported. CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Michelle London has that story.
Each aspect of President Biden's proposal would need wide support on both sides of Capitol Hill. And any constitutional amendment would also go to the states. While Vice President Kamala Harris has not mentioned this subject during her campaign, she did express support when the president announced his plan. A potential Harris administration would likely pursue the sweeping changes, although they face an uphill battle in Congress.
Biden's three-pronged proposal includes a constitutional amendment that prohibits blanket immunity for presidents, a direct jab at the court's July ruling that declared absolute immunity for official acts as president, affecting Donald Trump's legal issues. Second, setting 18-year term limits for Supreme Court justices rather than a lifetime appointment, and a binding code of ethical conduct for justices. In a White House statement, Biden described his mission as a desire to restore trust and accountability to the American people. Since then, the plan has been met with criticism.
That would be, the most radical change and really attack on the judiciary that we've seen since at least 1937. with President Roosevelt's court packing plan.
Utah Senator Mike Lee called the plan unconstitutional and an attempt to tear down the conservative majority party.
President Biden's proposal for the Supreme Court flies in the face of the U.S. Constitution.
Both House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell predict such a proposal would be dead on arrival in Congress. Andrew Grossman, senior legal fellow at Buckeye Institute.
They're going to be very difficult to bring them through Congress.
For a closer look at what's before lawmakers, we spoke to Regent University law professor Brad Jacob about the president's first prong.
A constitutional amendment requires 2/3 of the House of Representatives, 2/3 of the Senate.
In which case, Jacob sees as very unlikely.
The minority party almost always has more than 1/3 of each house, and then it would have to go to the states for ratification and get 3/4.
When it comes to presidential immunity, Biden maintains no one, neither president nor the Supreme Court, is above the law. Even without an amendment, Jacob feels certain criminal prosecutions, such as the effort to overturn the 2020 election, could go forth as planned against Donald Trump.
Especially if he doesn't win the White House and isn't able to call off the Justice Department.
In calling for term limits, Biden also proposes allowing presidents to nominate justices every 2 years for 18-year terms.
That would correct the sort of serendipity of current Supreme Court appointments, that sometimes a president in a very short time gets a bunch of appointments, and some presidents serve a relatively long time.
Jacob says a possible alternative to the 18-year term limit would be endowing justices with a senior status.
You're still a justice. You still collect your paycheck for as long as you're alive, but you become a senior status justice, which means you don't normally sit on cases.
Jacob says giving each president 2 appointments would still keep the court as a priority in presidential campaigns.
We're going to end up voting not just for president and vice president, but president, vice president, and 2 Supreme Court justices.
As for ethics, all 9 justices signed a formal code of conduct last November after public pressure and closed-door negotiations. But some Democrats criticized it over a lack of enforcement, demanding congressional intervention.
For now, the future of the Biden effort to make these changes lies with the November election and a number of elements falling into place. Even if Harris wins the presidency, there would also need to be an overwhelming Democrat majority in both houses to move the needle. While that could make a binding ethics code and term limits more likely, the odds remain even slimmer for a constitutional amendment. Michelle London, CBN News, Washington.
Coming up, remembering the bravery of those killed in the October 7th attacks, including not only Israelis, but also people from the Philippines. We'll bring you that story from Manila when we come back. As Israel carries out its war against Hamas and remembered the victims of the brutal sneak attack on October 7th of last year, people in the Philippines joined the Israelis in paying tribute to the victims and survivors of that terrible day. They highlighted the bravery and resilience of the Israelis, as well as the Filipinos who were there during those attacks. CBN's Lucille Toulousan brings us that story from Manila.
Jovel Castelvi with her son Jason lit a candle on October 7th in memory of those lost last year, including her husband Paul. He died while shielding his employer from bullets fired by Hamas terrorists. Sadly, he did not see his son, who was born a few weeks later. In this gathering, the Israeli embassy honored the Filipinos working in the country for their bravery and loyalty for not abandoning their employers in the face of danger. Unfortunately, 4 Filipino caregivers died that day. Survivor Camille Jasalve shared her harrowing experience of when Hamas terrorists entered the house of her 95-year-old employer.
I said, "Hi, sir. Please no. You want money, take everything, but not us, not our life."
After Camille gave all her money, the Hamas terrorists miraculously spared them.
If Israel has Iron Dome, the strength and power of God is like Iron Dome for me and Nitsa.
Camille is grateful to CBN's Operation Blessing Philippines, who visited them just a few weeks after the terrifying incident to give them trauma counseling and prayer. Israel's ambassador to the Philippines, Ilan Flus, praised Camille and also highlighted Israeli resilience.
Israel is challenged, but Israel is strong. Israel will defend itself, will continue defending ourselves, and we're looking for the partners to work with us to change the reality in the Middle East, to create a new reality, a reality of peace, of reconciliation, of future, of building and not destroying.
Christian organizations also showed solidarity with Israel through faith. Founder of the Jesus is Lord Church worldwide, Brother Eddie Villanueva said such events are needed to teach people the truth regarding Israel. He warned the Philippine government for recently voting in favor of a United Nations resolution, urging Israel to end its unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory within a year.
God's hands are upon Israel. It's high time for our government not to commit such mistakes in United Nations, making decisions on behalf of the Philippine government against Israel for few times. This is out of a combination of ignorance and cowardice to the pressures being used against Israel.
Here, the ambassador shared from Isaiah 41, which he believes will happen to Israel.
I will strengthen you and help you. I'll uphold you with my righteous right hand. All who rage against you will surely be ashamed.
Supporters of Israel in this gathering and throughout the world are committed to continue to pray for the peace of Israel and for the immediate release of 52 hostages who are believed to be still alive. Lucille Talusan, CBN News, Manila.
And that's it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com or talk to us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, which is formerly known as Twitter. We hope you'll join us again next time. Have a great day, everyone.